Jump in, type your questions up in the chat bar. We'll try to get to them. Some of our play testers are already here and watching the game here. Well, the cartels have gone ahead and taken actions here, and Mike, that's too funny. The cartels have taken operation and a special action, so the AUC is available to do that. Looking at the next card, they're second up on the next card. Let's see what ayahuasca would do for the AUC. The unshaded portion just gives resources to the government. That's not helpful. And there's only one place where AUC could do terror. Brett asked the question, what exactly is a shipment? Let's pause for a second here in the gameplay and explain what shipments do. Shipments are placed via the cartel's special action known as process. So here's what process does. Whenever you do a rally or a march with the cartels, you may also place a drug shipment. And you can do this in cities or departments that have a cartel base. Right? And the idea is you place one or two shipments with any guerrillas, or you remove any cartel's base and add +3 cartel resources for each. So if the cartels had a ton of bases on board, they could burn one to get resources. But the cool thing is you can place shipments. So I could do a process special action, say, in Guaviare, and I could put 2 shipments down, one on each of my guerrillas. Now here's the thing with the shipments. If a guerrilla is killed, if a guerrilla in possession of a shipment is eliminated, the shipment will pass on to another guerrilla that does not already possess a shipment. And it happens instantly. But if all the other guerrillas in the area already have a shipment, or there are no more guerrillas for that faction in the area, the shipment then passes to the faction that eliminated the guerrilla. So if I kill, this would be easier to demonstrate if I put the pieces down. So let's put 2 shipments here in Guaviare. Let's say this guy here, I'm the FARC and I kill him. If I kill him, then one of the guerrillas from FARC gets possession of the shipment. Now the shipment can be turned in during a resource phase for a base in that same area, or you can turn it in for +6 resources. Only during propaganda rounds can you do this. Now during a regular event card play, what you can do is while you're taking an operation, as long as you don't do a special action, you may also turn in a shipment that you have and do one more free limited op. So let's say I'm the FARC and I have a shipment. What I could do is I could do a march. Say I want to do a march into Naiva. I could march a guerrilla into Naiva and I could burn my shipment that I have in my possession. I could burn that shipment and then do a terror operation for free. Now the march cost me something. I have to pay resources for that. But when I burn the drug shipment, I can do a free limited op. So I could do the limited op somewhere else, but it would behoove me to do it in Naiva before the government could respond to my move. So I could move into Naiva and then I could do a terror operation there, which would of course degrade the government support in that area. So that's one of the things you could do with drug shipments. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, drug shipments have really added something unique to the game. It really adds some neat flavor, but it adds some neat strategies to the game. Okay, so AUC is up for play here. The event's not terribly useful. It does give them some resources, and it would smack the government a little bit, as well as the AUC. But is that worth going ineligible for? On the next card. Next card, the government might want to take the event. The event on the next card, 7th Special Forces. Here's where players at the table might be talking and making deals with one another. The AUC and the government might be talking here. Because the next card is going to be U.S. Special Forces, or excuse me, 7th Special Forces, which is U.S. training. Each control phase, the unshaded portion says each control phase, government may remove 1 to 3 terror or sabotage. That could be really, really useful for the government, especially when the FARC is aggressively going after its locks. So that might be a useful event for the government. On the other hand, the shaded portion is nasty to the government. U.S. training ineffective, control phase, sabotage locks with guerrillas equal to cubes. Ordinarily, during a control phase of a propaganda card, you only sabotage locks with guerrillas that exceed the number of cubes. So the shaded portion could really come back and bite them. If the AUC is eligible on that card, the government might want to make a deal with them. Maybe they strike a bargain across the table. So let's just say for a moment, for argument's sake, that they do that. Because the AUC would much rather take an operation that's going to have a little bit more oomph to it. So let's just say that they pass here. And they get one resource for passing. And now there's a little conspiracy going. Now this has another effect, a very subtle effect. Maybe you noticed it already, but watch what happened here. Okay, AUC is eligible to play, but by passing, they're putting themselves in a position to be eligible to play on U.S. Special Forces. But look at the turn or the eligibility order on 7th Special Forces. It's government, then AUC, then FARC. It behooves the government to make a deal with AUC on that card, because by both the AUC and the government acting on 7th Special Forces, FARC is left out in the cold. That means they don't get to do anything. Now that has annoyed some playtesters. They don't like the idea of tabletop conspiracies locking out a player. But the way the deck works, it's actually quite difficult to intentionally lock out the same player over and over and over again. But in this case, it's probably a very good diplomatic move for both parties. So the AUC passes, and now we have this situation for 7th Special Forces. Of course, the card underneath 7th Special Forces might change everything, but in this case, it really didn't. The card is Poppies, and both government and AUC are last, so they're definitely going to want to go first on this. But what to do? Does the government really want this event? Well, the bargain that they would strike with the AUC is, yeah, we're going to take the event. You can take the special the ops and special actions. If the government were to go back on their bargain, the AUC might want to play the shaded portion just to spite the government. So that's one of the reasons why there's really no binding agreements in the game. It's just that if you backstab someone, it's a long game. And they can make your life miserable. So backstab at your own risk. Let the backstabber beware. Let's go ahead and play the event for the government, because I think that this would be very useful for the government to keep up its resources. So what we'll do is we'll put a marker. This is the first government capability that we've seen played. And what this is this is a lingering effect. If you played Labyrinth, it's kind of like lapsing or lingering events in Labyrinth. But in this case, the effect is in play for the rest of the game. Any card that says government capabilities here that you see in the center of the card, it says government capabilities. Any of those cards is going to be in play for the rest of the game, whether for good or bad. So if the shaded portion is played against the government, it's in play for the rest of the game. And boy, can some of those hurt the government. I found that out the hard way during the solitaire game. But in this case here, the unshaded portion was played, in which case during each control phase during propaganda rounds, the government's going to be able to remove 1 to 3 terror or sabotage markers. That's going to make it a lot harder for the FARC to really hurt the government financially by attacking the locks. So training special forces will really enhance the government's ability to stay ahead of the 8 ball in the game. I just noticed the Presidente markers on the wrong spot. Okay, so that puts the government in this box, and the AUC may now do an event, or excuse me, the operation and special activity. And they're all about getting bases. They need to get some bases on board, and they probably also want to get some more guerrillas going. So let's train, or excuse me, rally some guerrillas here, and you know what? Let's rally one in Bogota. Here's what can happen in Bogota. This is a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, it's going to probably end up knocking the FARC out of Bogota, but at the same time, it's going to degrade the government's support. Whenever AUC terrorizes, it can help the government, but it also hurts them by degrading their aid, and it also degrades support towards neutral. So that's a way for the AUC player to be passive aggressive. Yeah, I'm helping the government, but I'm not really helping the government. So that I think that's a pretty good move by doing that. There's an open base opportunity in Santander, so I think it's a good idea to go ahead and rally there. And for once, the AUC actually does have a considerable amount of resources available to it. It might not be a bad idea to. Well, I think we'll stop there. That's 4 spaces where we're rallying, so that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Burning through those resources fairly quick there. I'm something of a paranoid player, so up in Atlantico, I would not be happy just putting a base down there because the government could airstrike it if I don't have some guerrillas protecting it. So I'm just going to place a guerrilla there. Hit the wrong shortcut key. Okay, so they're going to put a guerrilla there. Yeah, Mike, you can't rally in Arauca because it's still got opposition. So that would be a nice place to rally, but they can't there. Next, up in Antioquia, we can do actually, there's the population's 2, and there's 2 bases there. So we can actually put down 4 guerrillas. So we're going to get like a biomass of AUC guerrillas. By the way, I like to have what I call roving cauldrons in this game of AUC that march around in huge groups that the FARC can't really deal with, and basically they're hunter-killer squadrons. They go out and kill bases. In case you're wondering why I'm rallying so many guerrillas there. And Santander, same sort of story there. We want to just place 1 guerrilla. And in Bogota, 1 guerrilla. Remember, he can do that there because it has support. AUC can rally whether it's support or neutral. Now, some of you watching this may be wondering about crowding in the physical game. What's happening in Bogota is somewhat unusual. We do have overflow boxes on the map to accommodate situations where there's crowding. So far, I've only had to use 1 overflow box at any given time, and only a couple times at that. So we're not, in the physical game, we're not really finding crowding to be as big of an issue as one would ordinarily think. But we do have provisions for that if players do find a particular area crowded and a little uncomfortable. If you might be wondering about the locks. You know, do you lose your pieces on the lock? I mean, do they accidentally bump them and you find them in the wrong spot? Well, what I find works well is just to line them up like a snake along the course of the lock. And by doing so, it becomes very easy to see that they belong there and not in an adjoining department. So now the question is, does AUC want to extort to recoup some of their expenditures there? And I say absolutely. So up in Atlantico and Antioquia, we'll go ahead and extort in both those areas, nowhere else. So that gets 2 resources back. And that will terminate the card play. So next card up is going to be Poppies. And this is going to be a very cool event for the cartels. They're going to be able to place, it says place or remove 1 shipment or insurgent base in any mountain department. And we'll look at what that does in the next video. So those of us that you are live here, we're going to have to save the recording at this point.